Mr. Koski, for your willingness to serve again. And Mr. Chairman, thanks for having this hearing. This is a really critical position. Don't have to tell you that. You know it well. It's also one that this committee cares a lot about, given our oversight responsibilities. TSA has played a vital role since 9/11, of course, in combating terrorism and ensuring that our aviation and transportation systems are protected. As I walk through the TSA line, which I do twice a week, I say thank you for protecting us, because that's what you do. And we appreciate that, and we have fought to try to help ensure that your TSA personnel are treated appropriately in the federal government law enforcement context, and we want to do more in that regard. So we appreciate your work and the diligence of the TSA workforce. And if you look at the record, although GEO and others have helped to make your system work better by pointing out flaws, we have been blessed with not having the kinds of incidents that everybody feared that we would have repeatedly after 9/11. I will say that the 9/11 type threats, having been really the greatest challenge and really the reason TSA was bulked up and appropriately, those threats have evolved over time. And specifically, I want to talk to you about how TSA needs to realign to meet those evolving threats. Your job is not just to protect our airports and air travelers, but also the nation's surface transportation systems. And so Colonial Pipeline, you may know, is a big issue of concern of this committee. We had hearings on it. We've drafted legislation. We've actually enacted some legislation to help deal with that kind of a threat. It exposed vulnerabilities in TSA's oversight of our nation's surface transportation systems, specifically the pipelines, but more broadly. That ransomware attack at Colonial Pipeline was the largest attack on oil infrastructure in the history of the country. It also prompted you to issue the first ever cyber security-related security directives for owners and operators of pipelines that require mandatory incident reporting and the adoption of mitigation measures. When issuing these directives, TSA used emergency authorities, as you know, to bypass regulatory notice and comment periods. I remain concerned that the use of this emergency authority departs from TSA's previously collaborative approach with industry experts on cybersecurity standards. And this committee, I think it's fair to say, on a bipartisan basis, has some concerns about this. Another area of concern we have is the repeated refusal to provide any information to this committee about those draft directives to Congress. This includes the chairs and ranking members of this committee and other congressional oversight committees, despite having shared copies of the drafts of these directives to the pipeline industry. So you've provided them to the pipeline industry, but not to the oversight committees. The explanation we've gotten is that you won't provide the drafts because they are pre-decisional and therefore deliberative. I guess that confuses me, since you've already shared them with external companies, officials. So today will be an opportunity for you to explain how these documents can be both internally deliberative and yet externally shared with the private sector. That's a contradiction. You know, I think sometimes when things come up to Congress, they tend to become too public. All I can say is I think Chairman Peters and I, in particular, have a history of treating these kinds of sensitive documents in the appropriate way, and we need to know what your draft directives are saying to the private sector, to be sure that our oversight responsibilities, which are incredibly important right now with regard to what's happening with these pipelines and other potential threats, are able to be fulfilled. So again, thank you for your years of service. TSA will continue to be a really important piece of the security framework of the United States as we get back to even more travel. I was at the Greater Cincinnati Airport on Monday, and it was packed, and I was told that we're at 85% of where we were pre-COVID, but this summer, frankly, we're back to where we were in the summer of 2019. So that's good to hear. I know business travel is still off, but even with inflation and all the concerns about where our economy is headed, your travelers are back, and we got to be sure that TSA continues to provide, as I said earlier, this important service to protect them, protect our nation, and we appreciate what they do every day. Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this timely hearing, and I look forward to further talking about this draft directive.
Great. Thank you.